I need to write it more, but I really enjoy it. And sometimes it's in the background when we're organizing the closet.
All right, we should be live now, Kathleen, if you want to go ahead and kick us off.
Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our first official Austin Park Summit series session, Essential Spaces, Making Parks a Priority. I'm Kathleen Barron. I am the Senior Programs Manager at Austin Parks Foundation. I'm just going to give you kind of a quick overview of what we hope to do today, and then we'll do some introductions to everyone on the call. Basically, the point of this session is just to get everybody really amped up about parks, to give a quick primer on the importance of parks and stewardship and getting involved in parks, the role of parks in our civic life. And I think that we've seen that now more than ever because of everybody being stuck at home for a few months and having parks be the main place where you can get respite and recreation. So we're really seeing, we always knew parks were important, of course, that's the heart of the work that we do. But now we're really seeing that everybody, it's in a much more poignant way right now. So really quickly, I'll introduce myself and then hand it off to everybody else on the call. Just tell you a little bit more about what I do. I oversee most of our kind of community-based programs. So I oversee the Adopt a Park program, which is a partnership with Austin Parks and Recreation, where we recruit and support people who want to be stewards of their neighborhood parks. I also oversee the grants program, which provides an avenue for funding for community-initiated projects, and also our community engagement efforts and volunteerism, as well as now more recently we've become the fiscal sponsor of community gardens on city land. So that's a brief overview of what I do. I'm going to hand it off to Christine.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christine Chute-Knoll, and I am with the Austin Parks and Recreation Department. My role at PARD is I manage the Community Partnerships Program, and that's really an umbrella program for ways in which the community and our partners can leverage resources, so time and talents, and really to create community in our parks. So that's really our motto, is we create community, and that's really the foundation of the Community Partnerships Program. Underneath the Community Partnerships Program, there are several ways in which you can get involved in the park system. As Kathleen mentioned, I also co-manage the Adopt a Park program with our partner, APF. I also can assist with stewardship projects. So if you're looking to, take on some stewardship projects in your local park, that's under the Community Partnerships Program, and we do that in partnership with our many partners, our park partners. There is a way to get involved as a park partner. So if you're a nonprofit looking to get involved in the park system to support programs or development or stewardship, that we do have a way for you to do that as well. And also the Community Activated Park Projects program. So that is a way for community members to bring forward ideas for improving your parks. And so we have a proposal form, and once we receive, the Parks Department supports projects kind of moving on and to development. And we can talk more about that later as well. Thank you. And so is it Tom now? Do you want to introduce yourself, Tom? Awesome. I think you're muted, Tom.
Muted.
It's very good that I was the first one to make that mistake on the screen, so now all of us can feel fine about it now. So hi, everyone. My name is Tom Visco. I'm the Advocacy Manager at the Austin Parks Foundation, and you guys are going to hear from me a lot during this live stream, so I'm going to truncate my introduction and end it by thanking Council Member Ellis for being here as well, and we'll be talking to her after my presentation about the importance role that City Council plays and other policymakers play in helping and strengthening our parks. So thank you for being here, Councilmember Ellis. And if you wanted to say hi real quick, that'd be great.
Thanks a lot. I'm really glad to be able to be here with you today. I'm Councilmember Paige Ellis, and I represent Southwest Austin, which includes Zilker Park. It goes all the way down to Circle C, includes the Whate Oak Hill. So I've got a pretty big district with a lot of park space we're very lucky to have. And later on, I'll be talking about a few of the resolutions and initiatives that I have led on through this year in partnership with the Austin Parks Foundation and the Parks and Recreation Department, and a couple of other community organizations that assist these groups with advocating for the open spaces that we all know and love so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Councilmember Ellis. So really quickly, I just want to give kind of a background on the summit. This year would have actually been the 6th annual Adopt a Park Summit. So originally, this has always been a partnership with Parks and Recreation Department. And about 6 years ago, we decided to have basically like a mini conference that's free to people who are primarily park adopters. That was the main audience, but also people interested in park adoption. And we would meet in a conference space and have an opportunity to have breakout sessions where people could learn about everything from just the sort of nuts and bolts of being a park adopter, Adopt a Park 101, community organizing and engagement, fundraising, programs that Parks and Recreation Department offers, ways to get funding, all kinds of different things. It was really meant to be a very kind of tactical resource gathering space for people who want to do things either through volunteerism or through park improvements in their parks. Well, this year, obviously, things did not go according to plan. We were already planning to expand our offerings and have more tracks so that we could involve youth, have some youth leadership opportunities, because we're really seeing a big increase in young people who want to get involved in parks. And of course, we want to start that as early as possible. And we also wanted to increase the audience to include more of our partners, our nonprofit organization partners, and just generally have it be more welcoming to more people to get them involved, and also recognizing that our park adopters, in a lot of ways, especially people who've been involved for a long time, have sort of graduated past some of the resources and really want to know about what's happening in our city at a higher level and get even more involved in advocacy and things like that. So we'd already planned to expand it. Obviously now having a big in-person conference is not something we can do this year. And so we kind of took it as an opportunity to say, you know what, we're going to offer the summit online. Again, we're going to expand the audience. We really want anyone who cares about parks to tune in. This is kind of new for us because we are used to doing a lot of in-person stuff. That's always been our way of working. It's very in-person, community engagement. So the technology piece, just before this call, my Wi-Fi totally tanked. Luckily, it was salvaged before it started. And we're kind of figuring out how we want to offer these sessions to people, what kind of content we want to cover. Things are changing so rapidly. We want to make sure everything that we offer is very timely. But our overall goal is just to recognize that there are people out in the community who really care about parks and may not know all the kind of complicated history of our parks in the city, might not know all the complicated issues around parks and the budget and maintenance. And we want for people to be really well informed. We want people to increase their engagement. And in this time where people might not be able to gather in big groups, figure out ways that they can get involved and support their parks, either virtually or through other means. And so this is a great opportunity for us to really, dig in, offer a lot of different kinds of ways for people to get involved. And also, not only will we have these kind of panel discussions or, interviews or kind of Q&A sessions, but we're also going to have some supplemental programming on Instagram and Facebook, where we might have organizations that are doing really important community work have an opportunity to take over our Instagram, amplify those voices in the community. It's really an exciting time, honestly, to be able to really do a lot more with this summit. So anyway, we're trying to make lemons out of lemonade, and hopefully this is going to be a really, really valuable thing to folks. Before I let Christine take over, I just want to say that if you have any ideas about things that we could cover in future sessions, please email me, Kathleen with a K, at austinparks.org. And, there's really no limit to the things that we can cover. And so we'll really work hard to make sure that we are talking about things that are important to people. So Christine, I'm gonna let you take it from here.
Awesome. Yes, thank you, Kathleen. That was great. The summit is an awesome opportunity to really do a deep dive into issues surrounding parks, as well as just, your local government. And so I'm excited that we're going to be able to continue that and even maybe reach more people, which is a lot of what we've been seeing at the city when we're doing engagement, that being able to do some of this, although we love to be in person and engage, a lot of times, as we all know, traffic and logistics has made it hard to attend meetings, but we're seeing some really great numbers with our engagement. And so we're hoping even at the summit that we'll be able to really get more people involved, more people interested in the parks here in Austin, because as Kathleen said, we've seen, how important they are and will continue to be. And I think people too have just rediscovered parks that maybe they hadn't been visiting lately. And so we're just seeing like huge numbers at our park system, and that's great. But that just also means we would love to have more involvement from the community members. We know that people are interested, they see something that they'd like to improve, and they want to know, how do I do that? How do I get involved? And so obviously we are so lucky at the Parks Department to have such great nonprofit partners. So we have nonprofit partners like Austin Parks Foundation, which really is helping to serve the entire park system and the parks all over the city. And then we have a lot of partners who are kind of looking and they serve their one site within the Parks Department, or maybe an area or region. So there's a lot of ways to get involved. And then the Parks Department also has, like I mentioned, the Community Partnerships Program. And this is how, if you have a question, you've walked by your park and you thought, I wonder, could we have some nature play here? Or I wonder why we don't have any exercise equipment. Or, I wonder if I could start a community garden here. There is a way to, find out if that is feasible at your park. And as I mentioned before, under the Community Partnerships umbrella, there is the Community Activated Park Projects program. And that is a way for a community member, a neighborhood association, a stakeholder, or a nonprofit to really propose an improvement on parkland. And so we wanted to kind of just make it easy, streamline the process, do it in one form. And once the Parks Department receives that, we then really route it to pertinent people, because, the thing about the city is we are large and we have a lot of different players within every space. I mean, even if it is a park, we may have a creek there. So we have other departments that are helping to manage that space. But if you're able to do this proposal form, then the Parks Department will route that to the other departments. We will kind of do that work to route to see, okay, is this feasible at the park? Can we do that? Or do we already have plans to do something there? And that's, it's in a design phase, and maybe they're not aware that there is something that's going to happen. So when you propose something, or you even have questions, you can reach out and we will help you through that process. So the process is, we receive the proposal form, we route it for review for feasibility. We then do a site visit with pertinent staff. So usually myself and some other members of the Parks Department and other departments will meet on staff with the group proposing the improvement and just kind of talk through the project and the vision. Sometimes that's where the scope may be either grow in scope, or may we might make the scope smaller to make it more feasible. And then what the next step is, if it is approved, if it's something that can happen, that the Parks Department can support the group moving forward on it, we can assist with potential looking for resources. Austin Parks Foundation has a grant program. There are other organizations as well that have grant programs for improvements on parkland. And so we can support you as in those efforts to get the resources to make that improvement. after the funding has been secured, the Parks Department then will assist with implementation. And what that means, depending on the scope of the project, if there's permitting, design, construction, that's the Parks Department's role to assist in those steps to make that improvement happen in your park. And we've had great success with this program. Sometimes it's as small as a trash can to as large as a playscape. Or even some of our other community gardens. So there's a lot of ways you can improve your park, and we really want it to be community activated, to have your thoughts, your ideas, and your input throughout the process. As Kathleen mentioned, also another great way to get involved is adopting your park. Adopt-a-park groups are really vital to the Parks Department. Often when there are questions that we need to seek out a local area, a neighborhood association, we go to that Adopt-a-Park group. We want the input. We want that group to be able to then kind of spread information out. And it's a really vital part of the Parks Department. And so if your park is adopted and you want to get involved, we really suggest that you do that. And Kathleen and I can assist with getting you in touch with the contacts. Or if your park isn't adopted and you're looking to form a group to do that, again, we can help with that as well. It's an awesome way to just, really give love and time and resources to your local park. It doesn't mean you're going to do a massive improvement, but you may do a couple volunteer projects a year. And it's a great way to both meet your neighbors and also meet the staff of APF and the Parks Department along the way. And then, like I mentioned, we also, partner with a lot of nonprofits to do improvements on parkland. And so if you're a nonprofit and you're interested in partnering with us, please reach out. I'm also the liaison to our nonprofit partners who make improvements or do stewardship on parkland. As well as the Connecting Children and Nature initiative, which is an awesome initiative of the city. This is an initiative that involves AISD, tons of nonprofits, programming, as well as just stakeholders who are really interested in finding new ways to connect children to nature in parks, at schools, throughout the Austin. And so that, again, is another way you can get involved with the Parks Department. Again, I just want to reiterate that we are here. We want you to get involved. We want to hear your voices. We just, in December kind of finished up our long range plan, which was adopted by the council. And we heard so much how important the parks are to you, and how we want to see more parks, and how we want to have more access to parks, and how we want to see improvements in parks. And so we appreciate that. And then the next step would be to really, get involved in your park. And sometimes I know it's hard to know who to get in touch with. And that's really my job, is to help you find out who you should be getting in touch with for your various questions or needing resources. I'm definitely here to help, as well as Kathleen and APF. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you, Christine. So that was great, and I think it's a really good overview. Again, for the adopters who are tuning in, the summit is, and the idea behind the summit and the events that we'll be doing are all about giving y'all more tools to engage and to continue to be the stewards of a park system that you guys are. And I think one of the really important things about being a park steward is being a strong advocate for our parks in the public square, in public policy and politics. And it's something that Austin Parks Foundation has been focused on the past few years, and has done so very successfully. And that's in large part to folks like you who are tuning in, our adopters who get engaged with their council members, get engaged with the mayor, get engaged with city staff like Christine to advocate for what we want, which is more parks and more places for more people. So I'm going to do a really quick conversation right now about the interplay between public policymaking and parks themselves. I think for a lot of you who are park adopters, you already know why parks are important, right? You're out in them all the time and enjoying them. But it's really hard to, when you take a bigger step back and you look at the societal benefits of parks, it's remarkable. So I'm going to share my screen now so you guys can see my little presentation that I'm going to do. It is, here we go. It is parks for society, parks for our city. It's like exercise. It is difficult to have too much of it, and it helps literally everything be better. But even though there's those big societal benefits to parks, we as park advocates exist in a space where there's many competitors for the city resources like staff members or budget, or even for a legislator or council member like Council Member Ellis, who's dealing with so many different things. We as park stakeholders are competing with all of these other different interests for attention and resources to get the things that we need adopted. And I think it's really important when we talk about parks and politics to be really, really open and honest about what politics is, right? Which is the way that as a society we orient ourselves and organize ourselves around who has power to do what, who has power to decide where parks go, for instance. And these are just one of these pictures, as you guys can see, is from 2 weekends ago here in Austin. And the other one to the right is one of my favorite paintings of Benjamin Franklin advocating to the British Parliament. Benjamin Franklin was one of the first parks advocates in American history and advocated very strongly to local government in Philadelphia for the creation and adoption of more parks. So advocating for parks in this country has a very, very rich history, and it's important. And it's important because at the very highest level, parks are infrastructure, just like roads or sewers or water pipes. Parks are infrastructure, and what they're infrastructure for is the health and well-being of our society as a whole, as well as the people in our society, which is why it's so important that our tagline at Austin Parks Foundation is people plus parks, because while, obviously the parks are important to us, it's what we do, right? The reason that parks are important to us is because of the people who use them and what people can do in parks. And it's really, really important to keep that big picture in mind. Parks ultimately are reflections of our values as a society. We imprint upon parks what is important to us. Think about in Councilmember Ellis's district, Zilker Park, where we host Austin City Limits every year. That is a visible and symbolic reflection of Austin's love of live music. And in many other ways, one of these photos is from Paladuro Canyon. It's one of the first structures pictured there, constructed by the Civilian Conservation Corps in the early 30s when they were developing Paladuro Canyon. More and more through the 20th century and now, parks are also a reflection of our values around conservation and preserving open space, because we have all collectively decided that having those open spaces preserved and allowing people to go and exist in them and be a part of them and recreate in them, that is something that we want people to be able to do. It's something that we strongly value. But it also can't be underscored how good parks are for everything else, right? It's not just about playgrounds and going for a jog on the greenbelt. It's also about what parks do for us as a society. So this is a really good piece of information from a recently done study about 2 or 3 years ago about the benefits of multi-use trail infrastructure and pedestrian infrastructure like trails versus other types of infrastructure and how many jobs it produces. Parks are great because we get to go and we get to play around in them, but they're also great because every single job that we have at the Austin Parks Department is a green job, right? Because it's people whose business and livelihood is tied to the preservation and improvement of open spaces across Austin. And I think and the final thing that I think is really important to just say about parks really quickly, again, as I mentioned earlier, it's like exercise, it's hard to have too much of it, is because there's excellent documented evidence that parks benefit people in almost every single way. People's closeness to parks is directly tied to their mental and physical health, to their educational well-being. Parks make us happier, healthier, and safer. So at APF, we know all of these things to be true, and we are going to strongly advocate that the city adopts policies to help strengthen parks, because we know that the stronger our parks are, the stronger we are as a community. And these are just the three very broad goals that we have at Austin Parks Foundation when we think about engaging in public policy and politics. And I think one that I really want to highlight for all of you who are adopters and APF stakeholders who are tuning in is that third goal, which is we want to bring your voice as a park stakeholder, as a steward of open spaces in Austin to City Council, and make sure that council members and eventually in January, our state legislature understands why people like you invest so much time in improving our community and improving our parks. And for us at Austin Parks Foundation, when we think about advocacy and politics, we really think about our number one job is bringing the voices of our stakeholders to decision makers, because we think there are stories out there from you all and the special place that parks hold in your community that legislatures, they need to hear, because it's important for them to know that, to really hear it from their constituents. More specifically, at Austin Parks Foundation, there's sort of three broad buckets of public policy that we really care about. One is like the actual regulations around parks in Austin. Austin is very lucky to have a strong Parkland Dedication ordinance. And that is a very important policy that we have as a city, because it essentially mandates the creation of more and more parks. Austin has a lot of parkland deficient area, and access for everyone in Austin to parks is something that, according to the Trust for Public Land and other sort of academic institutions who study parks, accessibility, a person's ability to walk, bike, or drive to a park that is near them, either a quarter mile if you're in sort of the central heart of the city, or a half a mile if you are in kind of the periphery of Austin. That is the goal that we have said as a city through our Imagine Austin plan that we want. And Parkland Dedication and having a strong Parkland Dedication ordinance is very important to achieve that goal, because it allows the city to, as more development comes into the city, Parkland Dedication allows that development, which will bring more people, which is great, but is going to tax the parks more, right? So in order to maintain sort of the level of service of parks, enough sort of park per person, Parkland Dedication allows us to expand our park system and give it more funding as we have more and more users of parks coming into the city. Another important thing that we care about at Austin Parks Foundation is growing the parks pie. Every July and August, City Council and City Manager debate and deliberate over the City of Austin's budget. We, as park advocates, as I said earlier, we are competing with other interests on behalf of the parks. And that is really, really important. There are a lot of priorities that we have as a city. There's a lot of important things that we have to fund as a city. And one of those things is parks. And we at Austin Parks Foundation want to make sure that the parks are getting funded to an appropriate level. This has really been highlighted, underlined, and bolded with COVID-19. We have seen throughout the city explosive growth of park usage as we have gone into shelter in place, which is awesome. We want more people using their parks, because we know that people who spend time in parks are happier people and healthier people, and people who are more civically engaged. So that's fantastic that more people are using the parks. But it also is a real challenge. We have seen places in Austin, the Parks Department's own trail counters are sort of documenting trail usage across the city. And in some places, we have seen trail usage over the same time last year grow 30 to 70%, which means that we have a lot more miles getting tramped onto our trails. And it goes the same for our playgrounds and all of our open spaces. So it's really important when we think about the budget that parks are getting funded at a level that will allow us to maintain the sort of high quality facilities that park users in Austin expect. The final thing that we really think about a lot and care about a lot at Austin Parks Foundation, and something that you will, as park stakeholders, will be seeing us lead more on, is how we innovate on our existing ideas about how and why we fund parks. The how is thinking about creative ideas and innovative policies that allow us to put more money into our park system without necessarily having to compete for just budget dollars from Austin's general fund. We do that in a lot of different ways. In this city already, we have really great partnerships that have only begun to happen in the past few years that are enhancing the great work that the Parks and Recreation Department does by bringing in more partners for them. The Trail Foundation is a really good example of this, or the Downtown Austin Alliance and their stewardship of Republic Square Park, or you guys as adopters who are helping out the parks, volunteering in them and caring for them. All of that is adding more resources into our park system, be it dollars from private foundations like the Austin Parks Foundation or the Trail Foundation, be it resource and personal capital from people like you who are adopters who are donating your time to the parks. And there's many, many other ways to do that. And Austin Parks Foundation is going to be leading on expanding those ways because we know the more resources that we can put into our parks, the better off our city is going to be. The other piece of this is the why we fund parks. More and more as our city grows, it is becoming clear that our parks and trail system is an integral part of a lot of other things that the city does. One of those things that is especially obvious, especially now during COVID-19, where we see so many people on the trails, is how our parks and trails serve as a piece of our transportation system. So when we see Austin policymakers passing really ambitious policy goals like the Austin Strategic Mobility Plan, which calls for a serious reduction in single occupancy vehicle trips to commute to work, the grocery store, what have you, we want to be shifting more of those trips in Austin to greener, more sustainable methods, like riding your bike on Shoal Creek Trail. So we know that parks have all these benefits from, recreation and spiritual and mental health and what have you, but we are now, it's becoming more and more obvious that our parks play a really important role in our other priorities as well, like how we become a green and sustainable city. And Austin Parks Foundation is looking forward to bringing that into the conversation more and more. How we are going to do these things, how we are going to accomplish these goals is by working together with people like you, our park stakeholders. As I said before, we want to bring grassroots opinions and perspectives to City Hall. And in order to do that, we need to engage with people like you. And as you can imagine, that's getting a lot harder during the time of coronavirus. So I will be doing a lot more work to try to reach out and get people engaged where they are. And I encourage all of you, if you're interested in being engaged more in our advocacy, especially as we approach the budget, which will be presented and deliberated starting in July, we need more voices like yours. So if you're interested in doing that work and advocating on behalf of your park, please email me at tom@austinparks.org so we can talk about how you guys get engaged more. So that is, that's my presentation. Can you, Kathleen, I've shut it off, right? You can just see me now too. So if anyone has any questions about that presentation, you can clack away and email me at tom@austinparks.org and I'll try to get back to you about it. So now we're going to go to the final segment of our little chat after we just did a little 101 on civics and how to engage. We're going to talk to one of our policymakers. Oh my God, it's Paige Ellis, our council member from District 8. And also a new council member, but who has worked so hard and come out so strong in deference and in favor of our parks. We have a lot of parks allies on city council. We're very lucky in this city. All of our policymakers know how important parks are. And it's great that as we get new council members coming in, everyone seems to get that parks are important. So council member, thank you so much for being here.
Sure. Parks are so important, and it's really amazing for a city and a council that loves parks to still be able to find areas that need improvement or smoothing out, or to kind of put people in a room together to see how to make the best policy changes. So it's really been exciting to get to see firsthand at how we're able to work together to bring more park space and more accessibility to people in their neighborhoods or throughout the city that may want to visit a park.
It's well said, and I think it's really legislators like you who come in and are very effective and very focused on our parks. It's great to see, and it's because ultimately, like you yourself, you're a park person. You like to hang out at the park. So, council member, you've been sheltered in place like the rest of us for the past, 16 years. Where have you been? What park have you been going to a lot during our shelter in place days to get some relaxation and recreation?
I have mostly been going to the Barton Creek Greenbelt and to the Town Lake Trail. So because those are the closest park spaces to me, those are the ones that I frequent the most. But it's really been enjoyable to be able to get out of the house, go somewhere close by, and really feel like you are just surrounded by nature, which is the magic of parks, being able to disconnect and take a few moments to breathe some fresh air and enjoy nature. And that's why they're so important, as we all work very hard to do good work in this community, to have access to those spaces.
That is absolutely right. And one of the more hilarious, sad, however you want to call it, things, but very, very fortunate that you were there and leading on this was a few months ago, you spearheaded the creation of a working group to think about trails and policies that council could be adopting to help improve the health of our trails. And you were doing this all before COVID hit. So it's very prescient that you did that, because now the trails are getting used so much more. Can you talk to us a little bit about that working group, and what has it been working on? What is it going to work on? What are you hoping the outcomes will be from it?
Sure. So what you're talking about is the Urban Trails Stakeholder Group, which my office led on.
Yep.
And it was something that was brought to our attention actually by George Kofer, who a lot of people know and love, Hill Country Conservancy and the Violet Crown Trail, which runs through my district. And he scheduled a meeting and he said, we're identifying a need and we need your help. We are trying to get our urban trails permitted quicker and in a more cost-effective manner. And what we were finding was that the different city departments weren't necessarily seeing eye to eye. And so that will happen a lot in a big city. Every department has their way of programming the work that they do and approving, what are the criteria that need to be met and how do we approve projects. And what was happening with urban trails was that it was kind of this blend of being a park space, sometimes in a floodplain or near a floodplain, but also wayfinding signs and awnings and things of that variety. We're having to go through an ADA process and a structural permitting process. And so we found a little bit of an issue with the way multiple departments were handling urban trails. And when someone in our community says, hey, we need a little bit of policy help, can you help smooth this process along and help us all sit around the same table in the same room, having the same meetings to streamline this process? And so everybody was on board with it. Everybody wanted to get to work. And it was really a great collaboration to be able to allow more urban trails to take place in our city. We have a bicycle master plan. We've had bond funds approved for urban trails, and to really be able to smooth this process out was something that was great to be a part of, and have been really excited about the progress so far.
The leadership on that issue has been so important and helpful, especially as you said, mentioning bond dollars. I mean, making this process more efficient to build trails as we build out our trails master plan, making those dollars go further and further by making those processes more efficient is so necessary. Another thing that you have led on this year to, again, help our trail system and take pressure off of them was the Austin Healthy Streets initiative. So where did that idea come from, and is it helping?
Absolutely. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback from Healthy Streets. We continue to ask the transportation department, when's the next batch? When's the next batch? A lot of people are very excited about this initiative. It was actually begun as a petition from Walk Austin and 30 other organizations. There were so many people that said, yes, this is exactly what we'd like to see. There's less traffic because everybody is staying home and working safe. And this is the exact moment that you couldn't necessarily plan, but that you needed to be able to research what does it take to have more public space that utilizes streets that don't have a lot of traffic right now, and to give people a bit more public space to go to in addition to parks while we're trying to all get our fresh air. So the transportation department was able to quickly identify some places that were actually gaps in the urban trails network. And so even though it utilizes streets, the idea was to be able to give people safer access between different park spaces, and to also make sure that they were, safe from cars, as more people were trying to move into the street so they weren't crossing people on the sidewalks too closely. And it was really an aha moment when we realized that streets are also public spaces. And when you have lower car traffic, why shouldn't people feel safer walking and biking in their neighborhoods?
That's exactly right. The streets belong to the people, which I've heard many a city council staffer scream out of the windows of City Hall late at night during council sessions. I think the final thing, and just did a little talk, as you heard, about how important it is for people to engage with their council members. So we have the budget coming up. I know that the budget has not been released yet, so we're not really sure what will be in it, but could you give us a little flavor of what you're expecting as we think about the budget coming up? And then also talk to us a little bit about how best for people to engage with your office and with other council offices on making sure that the parks get enough funding this budget cycle.
Yeah, so the budget will be unveiled, the first draft of the budget, on July 13th. There is a link, and I apologize I don't have it handy, but it is Speak Up Austin, and it is the platform for people to be able to advocate before the budget gets released for the things that they hope it says. And parks is, to me, grossly underfunded. We put a lot of pressure on our parks department because we love them so much. And I think the budget really should identify the values of our city, and to see how many people know and love their local parks, and they're asking for things that the Parks Department should have funding for, things like filling potholes or updating signage to make sure that it's fresh and identifiable. And there's a lot that we want our parks to do, and I think our budget needs to reflect that. So I definitely want to see more help with parks. I would like to see more park rangers, because I've spoken to some of the park rangers that have been on the Barton Creek Trail, and their presence is so helpful, and they're able to help with things like leave no trace, making sure that people aren't trashing our creeks. The Clean Creeks initiative is something I also led on, to identify where is trash coming from, how can we work with resource recovery to get trash out of our park systems in a simpler way. So I want to make sure there's more park rangers. I want to make sure our clean community fee is being utilized to help our environment as much as possible, to figure out where trash is coming from, how can we clean it up quicker. And so I really want the budget to reflect that. I think there needs to be more money in parks. People know and love their parks so much, and there's a lot that our Parks Department is having to deal with. And that's why the Parks Foundation partnership is so important. We've had situations like with the Zilker Zephyr, where the contractor was nearing the end of their term, and there was bank stabilization that was going to cost a lot of money. And it got into a contract negotiation, and the Parks Foundation stepped up. And so we created that resolution to say we want the Parks and Recreation Department and Austin Parks Foundation to be able to work together to get the Zilker Zephyr back up and running. And these partnerships are so important to our community. We use our parks almost every day, and we need to make sure there's more funding. So we're absolutely going to be fighting for more of that. There's even more resolutions we've led on that I'd have to pull up my list if you want to talk more about it, but I know you may have a schedule you want to stick to, and council has a way of going over time.
we will at some point set up a nice 4-hour block to just for you and your allies on council to just talk about all of the amazing things that you guys have done for parks, just not only in your tenure, but I mean, the reason that Austin has a world-class park system is because consistently for decades, city council and people at the city have understood what it takes to have a world-class park system. It requires investment, and we've made that investment. And it's something that Austin can be really, really proud of. We always have more room to grow, of course, and improve and get better. But we, the Parks and Rec department here in Austin is one of the best Parks and Rec departments in the country. And that doesn't happen by accident. It happens by visionary policymakers like you making investments and having great people working at the department like Christine. So Councilmember Ellis, thank you so much. Thank you for being here with us. And Kathleen, I'll turn it over to you to close us out.
Thanks for having me.
Kathleen, you're muted now, but I did it first, so it's all good.
Darn it. Thank you again, Councilmember Ellis. Really appreciate you being here. Thank you all for joining us today. It was really, this is our first official summit session. There's lots more to come. Again, if you have ideas about what topics you'd like us to cover or voices that you'd like for us to amplify, there's so many people out in the community doing so much good work, especially right now. There's so much happening in this city and in this country, and we want to make sure that not only are we talking about parks, but we're talking about our whole community and what's important to us, because parks are such a central part of civic life. But we know there's lots of other stuff that impacts parks and lots of other stuff that's impacting people and their livelihood in general. So we want to make sure that we're really digging in and amplifying voices and having lots of different people as part of the conversation. So this is just the beginning. There't lots more to come. So tune into our website. Now I can't remember it. It's austinparks.org/Parks Summit, I believe. But if you access the RSVP for this, then you should have the page, and we'll be updating it, putting events on Facebook, putting events on Instagram. As I said before, some supplemental events or supplemental kind of programming, so we can really dig into a lot of different topics that people want to hear about. So let us know. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you all for being on the call. Thanks, Christine. Thanks, Councilmember Ellis. Thank you, Tom, for your presentation. And we look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.